Millionaire shocked after kind woman discovers abandoned baby with startling secret. Rain hammered the city like a drumbeat, blurring the sharp edges of glass towers and neon signs. Up high in his penthouse, Jonathan Reed stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the gray sky pour down on the streets below. His suit was perfect. His watch gleamed, but inside, a hollow ache gnawed at him. Success had come easy. Wealth, power, even respect, but none of it filled the silence inside his chest. Another day in the fortress he built around himself. But this morning would crack that world wide open. Wrapped in a long, dark coat, Jonathan stepped out into the storm, the heavy drops soaking his collar as he took his usual solitary walk. The city buzzed with umbrellas and rushed footsteps. He cut through a nearby park, trees slick and bending under the rain. The air smelled like wet earth and something else, a sharp, bittersweet tension. Then, beneath a tired old oak, came a soft. There, crouched on the muddy ground, was a young woman holding something small and trembling. Her eyes were wide and soaked with more than rain: fear, love, exhaustion. Wrapped in a worn, faded blanket was a baby, fragile as a broken wing. Jonathan's breath hitched. His heart slammed against his ribs with an urgency that burned through his usual calm. The woman looked up, her face pale but steady. "I found her here," she said softly, voice cracking. "Abandoned. No one knows where she came from." Jonathan's gaze fell to the child's face, tiny, perfect, except for a peculiar birthmark on her wrist. It was strange, almost like a dark crescent moon etched right into her soft skin. Something about it twisted painfully inside Jonathan's chest. That birthmark, it stirred a shadowed corner in his memory, a puzzle piece long buried. "Where have I seen that before?" he muttered, hands trembling slightly. "Emma," the woman, caught the question, her gentle eyes flicking between the baby and Jonathan. "I've never seen anything like it," she said. "But it's familiar, isn't it? Like it's part of a story waiting to be told." Around them, the city blurred, a world moving too fast to notice a secret hidden in rain and mud. The baby's small fingers twitched in the worn blanket, and Jonathan felt a lump in his throat, a moment of raw, unfiltered connection breaking through the layers of his loneliness. This was no ordinary discovery. The birthmark wasn't just a mark, it was a key, a whisper from the past. And Jonathan knew, though the answers weren't clear yet, that this baby could shatter everything he thought he knew about himself. As the rain slipped colder against their skin, the park around them felt both endless and claustrophobic, alive with silent questions. Who left this child alone? Why and how was this tied to the secret Jonathan had buried deep inside? His world was about tining. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Jonathan's gaze locked on the baby's wrist again. That dark, crescent-shaped birthmark, burning like a secret code. His mind raced to decode. His hands trembled, his voice barely a whisper. I've seen this before. But where? Emma's eyes searched his face. Concern pooling beneath the rain-soaked strands of her hair. You sure? It's so unusual, she said. Maybe it means something. Before Jonathan could answer, a sudden flash of light cut through the gray storm. A thunderous clap crashing overhead. The baby stirred, tiny fists curling and uncurling. Jonathan's heart pounded faster. A sharp stab of something new. Fear? Hope? A flicker of both. Then, as if the world wanted to tear itself open, a rough hand gripped Jonathan's shoulder. He spun around, eyes wide. Behind him stood a man, tall, soaked through. Face shadowed under a hood, but with eyes that struck like knives. Jonathan Reed, the man said, voice low but hard. You don't know what you're holding. Jonathan's breath caught. Who are you? The rain hammered their brief silence. Leaves shuddered like whispers. The man's hand jerked something out of his coat. A crumpled photo. He shoved it forward, like an accusation. Jonathan stared, frozen. The photo was old, yellowed around the edges, faint but unmistakable. A young woman clutching a baby, and right there, on that baby's wrist, the same dark crescent birthmark. Jonathan's chest seized, blood pounding painfully in his ears. That woman, that's your mother, the man said, voice cruel and sharp. Emma gasped, eyes darting between Jonathan and the photo. What do you mean? She whispered. The man's face twisted into a bitter smile. Because this baby isn't just abandoned. She's the reason your father disappeared. The reason your family fractured. The reason you've been running from a past you thought was dead. Jonathan's knees threatened to buckle. His mind collided with a wrecking ball of memories. Fragments he'd buried beneath success and silence. The storm blurred, city lights distorting into smears of red and yellow. Stop it, he growled, voice cracking. I don't want this. I left it behind. But the man didn't back down. You can't leave her. She's your daughter. The world spun sideways. Jonathan's hands shot out, trembling, as he reached for the baby. His heartbeat threatened to explode in his ears. Daughter? Him? It was impossible. The neat walls of his perfect life crumbling under the weight of one unknown child. Emma's face was pale, mouth slightly open, eyes wide with shock and fear, all tangled up. Suddenly, the man whipped around and vanished into the pouring rain, leaving only silence and a raw, brutal question hanging in the air between them. Jonathan looked down at the fragile bundle again. The birthmark, the past, the lie he never knew he was living. Who had this baby been waiting for? And how deep did the truth run? As the storm showed no sign of slowing, Jonathan's world tilted. His life, his name, his identity, everything was about to be torn apart. The baby's small fingers clutched his coat, and amid the chaos, one desperate thought burned clear. Had Jonathan really escaped the shadows of his family? Or was he just standing at the edge of a far bigger darkness? The rain kept falling, and nothing would ever be the same. Jonathan stood frozen, rain dripping from his coat, the baby clutching his sleeve with fragile fingers. The city's distant hum faded, swallowed by the storm and the weight of what he'd just heard. His daughter. His daughter? The word crashed through his mind like lightning ripping the sky. Emma's breath hitched. Her eyes shone with worry, searching his face for answers he didn't have. This can't be real. You have to tell me this isn't real. But before he could even open his mouth, a sharp scream tore through the wet air. A sound so raw, it sliced right through the noise around them. Jonathan turned. Across the park, a woman staggered into view, drenched, her face pale and wild. She held a cell phone in trembling hands, pointing it toward them like a weapon. "You don't know what you're doing," she shouted, voice cracking with panic. "That baby isn't Jonathan's daughter. She's something else." Emma stepped back, shielding the child, her eyes wide. The woman's gaze darted between them, frantic. She took a shaky breath and blurted out, "You're all wrong. That baby, she's a danger." Jonathan's heart hitched. What? What danger? The woman's eyes flickered with something dark, and she whispered, "She's not just abandoned. She's infected." A cold silence dropped. Emma's hands tightened around the blanket. Jonathan's mind refused to catch up. "Listen to me," the woman kept going, voice low now, but desperate. "That birthmark, it's the mark of a virus, not the kind people talk about. Something bioengineered. Your father wasn't just missing. He vanished after trying to protect the world from what this child carries." A sudden chill rushed down Jonathan's spine. "What virus? What are you talking about?" he demanded, stepping forward. The woman's eyes locked on the baby, her lips trembling. Then, with frightening speed, the baby's tiny hand shot out. The skin around her birthmark began to glow faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Oh God," Emma whispered, stepping back, air trembling around her. The woman froze, eyes wide with terror. Jonathan's breath hitched, disbelief crashing hard against the growing dread in his chest. Then, without warning, the baby's gaze snapped toward Jonathan. Her eyes weren't just big and innocent anymore. They flashed a strange, unnatural color, sharp, almost electric. His world flipped upside down. That wasn't a child waiting for love. That was something else. Something alive with power and menace. The rain intensified, pounding harder, drowning the city sounds. People in the distance started to notice, turning their heads with whispers and fear. "Is that a child? Or some kind of weapon?" a voice called out. A group gathered, their faces mirrors of shock and growing panic. Jonathan's hands shook violently. The baby's fingers tightened on his coat, glowing brighter. her eyes locking on his with cold clarity. "It's inside her," the woman said, voice breaking. "Your real enemy, and she's been waiting for him." Jonathan's heart slammed dangerously against his ribs. He stumbled back, dropping to his knees, the baby's glow casting eerie shadows across his rain-slicked face. Everything he thought he knew, his family, his past, his identity, crumbled like dry leaves in a storm. Because the truth wasn't just about a lost daughter or a shattered family. It was about a secret buried in shadows, darker than he could have imagined. A secret that wasn't human. And Jonathan Reed was standing right in the middle of it. The baby's eerie eyes didn't blink. They pierced through him, opening a door to a nightmare he never saw coming. And just when he thought he could run from the truth, the sky tore open with another thunderclap, echoing the jagged crack, splitting his world apart. Jonathan looked up through rain-soaked lashes. Who had really been hiding in the shadows all these years? And what horror had followed him here, wrapped in the arms of a child? Jonathan stood frozen, rain drumming a steady beat on the pavement. The baby's glowing eyes locked on his, unblinking, like they could see everything inside him, every secret, every fear. Around them, people had stopped moving. The storm swallowed the city sounds, wrapping them in a thick silence. And then, a sudden sharp crack split the air. Jonathan's head snapped up. Lightning tore through the heavy gray, brighter than before. And in that fierce flash, the baby's expression twisted. Not innocent anymore, but dark, hard, almost angry. Before anyone could react, the baby's tiny hand shot out again. And this time, the crescent birthmark glowed so bright, people gasped, stumbling back. Emma tightened her grip, her fingers trembling. Jonathan's heart slammed against his ribs, a painful beat racing through his veins. But then, something impossible happened. The baby's glow pulsed, and with a sudden burst, the shape of the child distorted, like smoke twisting in the wind. The blanket dropped to the wet ground, empty. Everyone gasped. Jonathan's breath caught. The crowd froze. "What are you?" Jonathan whispered, stepping back, his voice breaking. The woman smiled, cold, knowing. "You've been looking at the wrong story, Jonathan," she said, voice soft but shaking with dark power. "She was never your daughter." Emma gasped, backing away, eyes wide with terror. "What? What do you mean?" Jonathan stammered, fighting to keep his balance, the world spinning, fast and wild. The woman stepped closer. "I am the real threat you've been running from. That child was just a shell, a mask. I'm what your family tried to hide, what your father disappeared protecting you from." Rain pounded harder, thunder cracking overhead like a war drum. Jonathan's chest tightened, breath shallow. "You're lying." "No," the woman said, voice dropping low. "I'm your blood, your brother." The word hit Jonathan like a fist. His brother? He blinked, shaking his head. "No, that's impossible. My brother's dead." The woman's eyes flashed fire. "Dead? I survived. I've been waiting, watching, and that baby you're clutching, they put me inside her. I was never gone. Emma gasped again, stumbling back as whispers rippled through the crowd. Inside her? Jonathan said, voice barely a whisper, heart pounding so loud it seemed ready to burst. What's happening? The woman stepped forward, rain clinging to her dark coat. They tried to erase me, but I'm here now, alive, and I'm the virus. Silence. A long, chilling silence. Then a small, sharp sound in the distance. The hum of sirens weaving through the rain. People started pulling out phones, their faces pale, eyes wide. Jonathan's knees buckled, his hands shook violently. My brother, but why? Why this? Why now? The woman's smile twisted into something cruel. Because you never left the past behind. We are bound, Jonathan, connected by blood, and by this secret they buried deep. Lightning flashed again, cutting the sky like a razor. Jonathan looked down, and the worn blanket on the ground stirred. From the shadows beneath it, a pair of glowing eyes blinked open. The baby wasn't gone after all. It wasn't a child. It wasn't a mask. It was something else. Something alive. Something waiting. Jonathan swallowed hard, gasping for air as the rain thrashed around him. His past wasn't behind him. It was standing in front. And his family's darkest secret had just shredded everything. Who was this real child? And how deep did this nightmare go? The city held its breath. The storm wasn't over. The blanket shifted on the wet ground. The glowing eyes blinked. Slow. Above. Deliberate. And then fixed on Jonathan again. The crowd around them gasped, stepping back in fear. The storm sounded distant now, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Jonathan stumbled forward, heart hammering. His hands trembled uncontrollably. It's not gone. It's still here. The woman, the one who claimed to be his brother, smiled, a cold, sharp edge cutting straight through the heavy air. Then, in a blink, the glowing figure stood fully upright. Small, no longer, but something else. Taller, thinner, with limbs that stretched too long for a child. The glow dimmed from the eyes, replaced by a look that chilled Jonathan all the way down. Before anyone could react, the figure threw back its head and screamed, a sound raw and endless. Glass shattered somewhere nearby. People screamed, scattering like frightened birds. Jonathan's breath hitched. He felt Emma's hand gripping his arm, weak, trembling, pulling him back from the edge of panic. But then, something impossible happened. The screaming stopped. The figure slowly turned toward Jonathan. In the flickering streetlight, the face came into focus. Jonathan gasped. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't a weapon. It was him. The exact look in the eyes, the same startled confusion and deep fear. It was Jonathan's face. The crowd froze. Emma's grip tightened until her nails bit into his skin. No, that can't be. The woman, Jonathan's supposed brother, stepped closer. eyes burning with truth and madness. "Look closer, Jonathan. This isn't your daughter. It's you, the real you." Jonathan's knees buckled. "Wait! No!" he whispered, shaking his head as cold sweat dripped down his spine. "I don't understand." The creature that looked like him reached out a long, pale hand, eyes glowing faintly again. "Your family didn't disappear. They split. Two sides. And I was hidden." "What? Hidden? How?" Jonathan's voice cracked, panic rising like bile. The woman laughed, bitter and brutal. "You weren't just running from your past. You were running from yourself. That child they left in the park, that was your shadow. The part of you they sealed away, trapped inside a vessel, waiting to be free." Jonathan's mind shattered. The crowd murmured, terrified whispers spreading like wildfire. A police siren blared closer, but Jonathan barely heard it, over the thunder pounding in his chest. "Me? You mean?" His voice faltered. "That baby was never a baby. It was me, part of me. All this time, I've been split?" The woman nodded slowly, eyes fierce. "You're both one and not. The virus you thought cursed your family wasn't a virus at all. It was a fracture, a break in your very soul." Emma's tears ran down her cheeks. "Jonathan, this can't be real, not like this." But the figure, his doppelganger, stepped forward, voice lower now, more human, but no less heavy with truth. "You didn't lose your past. You lost yourself. And now, it's back." Jonathan's hands covered his face. His breath was ragged, heart hammering painful answers to questions he didn't know how to ask. The woman's voice dropped. "The world you built is a lie. And the child you found, she wasn't abandoned. She was sent." "Who? Sent? Sent by whom?" Jonathan's voice was a broken whisper. "She's the key," his brother said calmly, "to put you back together or tear you apart forever." Lightning split the sky. The crowd gasped and scattered. Jonathan dropped to his knees, soaked and shaking. His reflection, the real him, stood tall and watching, and one terrible, burning thought launched straight through the chaos. If that baby was him, then who or what was the child inside the blanket, now stirring beneath the ground? The city held its breath. The storm had only just begun. The blanket shifted again, shadows swirling beneath its edges. Jonathan's breath hitched, his heart thundering so loud it sounded like it would burst free from his ribs. The crowd held their breath. Even the storm seemed to pause, waiting. Then, with a shudder like a breath exhaled from the depths of the earth, the ground beneath the blanket cracked. A low hum filled the air, pulsing, thick, alive. Jonathan stumbled backward, panic clawing at his throat. Suddenly, a figure ripped itself from the darkness, no longer small, no longer hidden. Tall, still glowing faintly, but this time with a deep red hue. Its eyes burned with something far colder than fear. The creature stepped forward, its voice raw and shaking with rage. "Enough lies!" the crowd gasped, stepping back in horror. Emma clutched Jonathan's arm like a lifeline. His knees buckled. This wasn't the baby. This was something else. Something terrible. But as the figure moved closer, the world flipped even further. Under the glowing rain, with every step, the figure's shape shimmered, twisted, and then, finally, settled. It was not Jonathan's reflection. It was him, his face, his eyes, but drenched in blood and tears. And then those eyes flicked down to Jonathan's chest. With a cruel smile, the creature reached out, fingers stretched wide, almost claw-like, and pulled something no one saw coming. A pulsing, beating heart. No, their heart. Jonathan froze, the sick weight of a new truth crashing down. This, the creature's voice was a whisper that cut through the rain. This isn't your heart. It's hers. Jonathan's vision blurred. The baby's glow, the one inside the blanket, the true spark of life in this nightmare. It was his own heart she'd been carrying all along. The crowd gasped louder, whispers exploding like wildfire. Emma's face went pale. That baby wasn't just a vessel. It was carrying you, your heart. Jonathan, what does that mean? The woman, his brother, stepped back, eyes burning cold. You wanted to run from your past, from yourself, but you left behind the part of you that could destroy or save. She's been keeping you alive and dead at the same time. Jonathan fell to his knees, hands shaking as the storm screamed around them. His chest burned with a phantom pain, a hollow, aching space where his own heart should beat. "Wait!" a voice cracked through the chaos. It was Emma, trembling but fierce. "If the heart you carry isn't yours, then what are you?" The twin creature, once his brother, smiled cruelly. "A shell, an echo. You've been dead inside for years." Lightning split the sky. In that flash, the creature leaned down to whisper into Jonathan's ear. "You died the night they took me. They hollowed you out and stitched me back into the world to watch you die." Jonathan shuddered, disbelief and horror wrapping tight around his lungs. "No," he gasped, voice breaking. "That can't be." But the sirens were getting closer. The crowd was scattering. The rain fell heavier, and the figure standing over Jonathan, smiling like death itself, reached down, slow, solemn, and pressed a frigid hand against Jonathan's chest. The pain exploded, a sick, burning fire that swallowed him whole. Jonathan's eyes snapped shut. When they opened again, everything had changed. The baby, no, the creature once hidden under the blanket, blinked up at him, serene now, glowing softly. And inside her, the faint pulse of a heart. Jonathan's voice was barely a whisper, trembling, broken. "What? Who am I?" The woman, his brother, stepped back into the shadows, voice dripping poison. A corpse with a heartbeat. A ghost chained to this life by a secret you'll never escape. But the worst part wasn't the words. It was the certainty. Jonathan's world wasn't just cracked, it was shattered beyond repair. And somewhere, beneath the storm's endless roar, a new question screamed into the rain. If Jonathan didn't have his own heart, then who had it? And what monster had been roaming inside his chest, waiting to be found? The city held its breath. The nightmare had only just begun. Jonathan lay on the cold, wet pavement, breath ragged, every heartbeat a jagged stab in his chest. The weight of the creature's touch still burned deep where his heart should have been. Around him, whispers swelled into murmurs, and the crowd edged farther away, faces pale, eyes wide, and full of fear. Emma knelt beside him, shaking. "Jonathan, please, tell me what's real. Please." Her voice cracked like fragile glass under pressure. He tried to push himself up, trembling hands clutching the damp ground. But then something moved beneath the shattered silence, a faint shuffling, like dry bones scraping through dirt. The blanket stirred again. Jonathan's head snapped toward it, panic igniting in his gut. Slow, careful, the blanket lifted inch by inch, revealing not a child, not something monstrous, but a man. Pale, thin as a ghost, soaked through with rain, eyes closed as if sleeping. Jonathan's breath stalled. His voice trembled, almost desperate. Who are you?" The man's eyes snapped open, bright blue, sharp, cold like ice shards. He blinked once, twice, then smiled, an impossible, cruel smile that cracked something deep inside Jonathan. "I'm the real Jonathan, and you're just the lie." The crowd gasped, backing away as the two men faced each other. The pale stranger, calm and fierce, and Jonathan, broken and soaked, clinging to the last shreds of himself. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "What is this?" The woman who called herself his brother stepped forward, eyes gleaming with dark satisfaction. "You see now, the truth you ran from. It's not just a fracture in your soul. It's a complete takeover." Jonathan felt the air leave his lungs. "Takeover? What do you mean?" The pale man smiled wider, stepping closer. "You're a ghost, Jonathan. Your heart, trapped inside that baby, kept you alive only in pieces. The body you think is you, it's a shell, a puppet." Sweat dripped down Jonathan's forehead. "Then what am I? How is this possible?" The man laughed, low and chilling. "Because the story you were told was a lie. Your father? He wasn't your savior. He was the one who created this, designed me, designed you, to split the person he feared most, me." Shock slammed into Jonathan like a train. "No," he breathed. "My father, a scientist, a monster, sure, but a creator?" The stranger nodded. "He perfected a virus not to kill, but to copy, to replace, to erase the original. That child you found, she was a vessel, but I was the original." Emma clutched Jonathan's arm tighter. "So you're what? The prototype? The real Jonathan?" "Exactly," the pale man said, voice soft but deadly. "And you're the prototype of a failed copy. A ghost stitched to life, desperate and broken." Jonathan staggered. spinning slowly as the rain hammered down, drowning out the city sounds in a deafening roar inside his head. Suddenly, the baby, the glowing figure under the blanket, shifted again. But this time, something else happened. It began to change, shrinking quickly, dissolving into light, scattering like embers caught in the storm's wind. And from that light, a soft female voice called out. Clear, gentle. "Father," she said. The crowd froze. Jonathan's eyes widened, breath caught in his throat. "Father." The pale man's smile vanished, his eyes darkened, and his voice dropped. "No, no, that can't be." Emma's face crumpled with confusion and fear. Did the child just call him father? Jonathan's own voice was barely audible. Who is she then? The pale man looked at the glowing light, painfully torn. She's the next step. Not mine, not yours, someone else's. A cold shiver ripped through Jonathan's spine. Someone else's? Emma echoed. Before the crowd could make sense of it, the light flickered, and a new figure stepped forward from the shadows, tall and cloaked in darkness. One look, and Jonathan froze. The newcomer's eyes gleamed with an unnatural calm. Not angry, not cruel, but hauntingly familiar. "I'm the one who made all of you," the figure said softly. "The puppet master you never suspected. The real secret your family hid." The rain slowed like time itself had paused. Jonathan staggered back, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might shatter his ribs. "This isn't about family drama anymore," the voice whispered. "It's about control, about who owns your soul." And just like that, everything changed again. Jonathan's world cracked wider, the storm not just outside, but inside him. The crowd's silence was deafening, because the true nightmare was no longer about blood or past. It was about power and who held it. Jonathan's lips trembled as the figure stepped closer, voice cold and final. "You're all experiments." His heart hit the floor like a hammer. "No, that's impossible." "Oh, but it's true." The storm roared back to life, and the city swallowed the scream. The cloaked figure stepped forward, eyes cold and unyielding, voice dripping with accusation. "You're all experiments." A hush fell, thick and heavy, swallowing the distant thunder and the drip of rain from the cracked pavement. Jonathan's breath caught. His legs felt weak, like they might give out beneath him. Emma clutched his arm tighter, her skin slick and trembling. "No," Jonathan whispered, shaking his head. "That can't be." "Oh, but it is," the stranger said. Lightning tore the sky apart once more, jagged and cruel, flooding the park with harsh white light. Then, a scream. Raw, sharp, cutting through the charged air like a knife. Head snapped to the source. The pale man standing to Jonathan's side, the supposed real Jonathan, collapsed suddenly, clutching his chest as if it was on fire. Blood bloomed beneath his fingers, dark and thick against the wet concrete. "No!" Emma gasped, dropping to her knees, panic ripping through her voice. The crowd surged backward, eyes wide, whispers exploding into frantic murmurs. Jonathan stumbled forward, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might tear free. His mouth was dry, throat tight. Every breath was a battle. The pale man's face twisted, pain splintering through his cold features. Then, with a ragged breath, he looked up, eyes wild but burning. Not with hate, but something far darker. "I'm not real," he gasped. A shadow, a fragment. Something shifted inside Jonathan's chest. Something cold and ripping. "Wait!" The rain stilled midair. The city lights flickered. Even the crowd froze, breaths caught, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Jonathan's gaze lowered to his own hands, trembling, slick with rain and dirt. But then he blinked, and something impossible happened. His hands began to dissolve, not fading like mist, but like pixels scrambling apart, edges blurring, colors bleeding. Panic surged. Around him, the people dissolved beside him. Emma's terrified face flickered, fracturing like broken glass. The cloaked figure's voice echoed, now distant, distorted. "You never existed. None of you did." "No, this can't be!" Jonathan screamed, chest tightening, voice raw with disbelief and terror. His world shattered. Then, from the swirling dark above, a harsh, booming voice filled the sky. It wasn't thunder. It was colder, deeper, mechanical. "Subject: Jonathan Blake. Simulation sequence terminated." A sharp crack, like static, tore the air. Jonathan gasped. He was somewhere else. Nothing was real. None of it had been. He wasn't a man in a doomed park in the rain. He was an experiment, a simulation, and he woke. Blinding white light stabbed at his eyes. A cold metal surface pressed against his back. He gasped again, choking on dry air. Around him were rows of sterile pods, cables snaking like living vines. Figures in lab coats hovered nearby, their faces blurred, voices cold and clinical. "No," Jonathan whispered, trembling, mind exploding. "No. There was a baby, a family, a brother, a virus." One figure approached, pulling back a helmet-like device from around his head. His skin was pale, marked with faint lines, like circuits under flesh. "I'm not Jonathan," the figure said softly. "We gave you his memories. You're the prototype, the test. But Jonathan Blake, he never existed outside these walls. Not in the real world." A gut-wrenching silence fell. Jonathan's fingers clenched the cold metal beneath him. "No," he breathed. "I felt it. The heart, the child, the past." The scientist shook her head slowly. "Feelings are part of the construct, designed to keep you compliant. But you were never meant to be free. Never meant to know." Jonathan's chest burned with sudden, suffocating grief, the deepest kind of loss. His life, the city, the rain, a lie layered on more lies. A voice snapped him back, harsh, insistent. Subject 672. System reset in T-minus 10 minutes. Compliance mandatory. Resistance will be neutralized. Jonathan's mouth opened, and he screamed. This time, it wasn't desperation. It was fury. Because now, even the nightmare was a prison. And the question clawing up like acid. If none of it was real, who was the real Jonathan Blake? And who had been watching him, trapped in a world made of shadows and lies, all this time? The blinking lights of the lab flashed cold and unforgiving. And somewhere, in the endless void beyond the simulation, the true puppeteer smiled. The storm wasn't over. It had never even started. Jonathan's scream echoed off the sterile pod walls, sharp and hollow. Lights flickered overhead. The cold air bit at his skin. But inside his chest was a furnace, burning with anger and confusion. Around him, the scientists moved like shadows, quiet, distant, their faces unreadable behind glass visors. The hum of machines filled the room, pulsing deep and slow. Subject 672, reset in 5 minutes. A voice crackled through speakers. Compliance required. Jonathan's hands shook violently. His breath came ragged. Each inhale a ragged stab in his lungs. He tried to move, tried to fight the invisible chains of this nightmare prison. And then, a sudden spark in the air. A sharp twist, like a glitch in reality itself. The pod behind him shattered, glass spraying like frozen rain. Jonathan's heart jumped. He whipped around. Standing in the wreckage was a girl. Not a woman, not a shadow, but a girl. No older than 10, eyes burning bright with fierce innocence and something else. Fear, maybe, or desperate hope. "Jonathan," she said, her voice soft, trembling. "It's me. Please, don't forget." The word landed like a hammer. Jonathan's skin crawled. He stared at her, panic and disbelief mixing in his gut. Every part of his body screamed that this couldn't be, that she wasn't real. But the way she looked, the intense pull of those eyes, it cracked something open deep inside. Who are you?" he whispered, voice breaking. The girl stepped closer, hands trembling. "Your daughter. Not the one you found in the park, but the real one, the one they erased." Jonathan's head spun. His mind flickered like a broken light. "No, impossible." She shook her head, tears shining. "They used me to trap you here. But I remember, and I'm coming for you." Behind the scientists, alarms blared loudly, red lights flashing like warning signals. "No! Stop!" a voice screamed. Jonathan blinked hard. The girl reached out, touching his face with cold fingers. Suddenly, everything shifted. The walls melted away. The floor gave way beneath him. He was falling, through darkness, through memories. And when he landed, the world was gone. Instead, he found himself in the middle of that storm-soaked park, the rain dripping steadily, the city humming far away. But something was wrong. The air was thicker, heavier, and in his hands, Not a baby, but a small, broken device. A glowing orb, pulsing like a heartbeat. A crowd surrounded him. Faces blurred but familiar. Emma, the woman from before. But their eyes were empty, lifeless. A voice rang out, cold, distant, mechanical. Contain the anomaly. Subject 672 is unstable. Jonathan looked down, heart slamming. The orb pulsed faster, and from its core, a reflection. Not of him, not his daughter, but of every lie he'd been told. His own face, cracked and flickering. The girl's voice whispered again in his ear. They made me real to break you, but now the real game begins. Then the orb shattered, and the world erupted into blinding light. Jonathan gasped awake. Cold sweat drenched his skin. But this time, he was not in the pod. He was in a hospital bed. Machines beeped softly. Beside him sat a woman, her eyes swollen from tears. No scientist, no stranger. "Dad," she whispered, "you're awake." Jonathan's throat tightened. "Who are you?" he croaked, voice fragile, barely there. Her hand trembled as she reached for his. "I'm Sarah, your daughter, not from a lab. From the world you left behind." Jonathan blinked, staring into a face that shattered every truth he'd held on to. Because now, everything he thought he knew was a lie. And the real nightmare, it was just beginning. Jonathan's eyes fluttered open, the harsh hospital light stabbing at his throat. His chest felt heavy, hollow, even though a steady beep marked a slow but sure pulse. Sarah sat by his side, fragile but firm, her hand warm in his trembling grasp. "I'm really here," she said softly, voice breaking like a fragile wave. Jonathan swallowed hard. The chaos, the lies, the virus, the shadows, it all felt distant, like a nightmare slipping away. But this, her, was real. Tears burned behind his eyes. "How?" he whispered, voice raw with despair and hope tangled tight. She squeezed his hand. "Because you fought, not for the past you lost, or the secrets buried deep. You fought to find me, your reality, and maybe, just maybe, to save yourself." Jonathan's breath caught. The city outside the window was quiet for once. A sliver of sun broke through storm clouds, hitting the floor in soft gold. He looked at Sarah, her eyes fierce and kind. "Not perfect," he said weakly, "but real." And maybe that was enough. The doctors stepped in, murmuring soft words, planning tests and treatments. But Jonathan hardly heard them. The storm inside him had calmed, just enough to breathe, just enough to hope. Sarah smiled, a small miracle in the darkest night, and whispered, "We have a second chance, Dad. Together." Jonathan nodded, a lump stuck in his throat. He wasn't sure what came next. The shadows still lurked. The secrets still whispered. But for the first time, he felt something he hadn't in years. A spark. A crack in the darkness. Outside, the world waited. waiting for answers, waiting for the truth to unfold, waiting for Jonathan to take that first step forward. He looked out at the city skyline, hands shaking but steady. The past might never let him go, but maybe, just maybe, the future was his to fight for. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Hey, before you go, listen up. You need to subscribe right now so you won't miss the next chapter of this wild ride. Hit that red button and lock it in. Smash the like button right now. This is the moment to show your support. The algorithm loves it when you do. And